It was good, y'all. It's your boy JD6 here with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
And welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast. Keegan Russell, Spencer Gray here with you tonight, and we're going to switch things up content-wise. For those of you that have been here through the long haul since the very beginning of the podcast, since the inception of the podcast, the primary first episode, you know that this podcast came about because of our love for basketball and talking about NBA. So we want to take an episode here, just talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs, kind of catch up on what's been going on the last couple of weeks, and kind of preview the conference finals, and give us some projections there. But first, remember, you can check us out over here on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the podcast. Go ahead and do that right now for us. Over 600 subscribers now. We are super grateful for all that, on our way to 1,000. You can also give us a follow on Spotify, where you can listen on the go. You can also give us a 5-star rating and review, which would help more people find the podcast. And of course, you can hit us up on any of our social medias at KCSA Pod. All right. Well, Spencer, we are now ready for the conference finals. We've had, I think, the second round series, a pretty solid series. But give me your take so far on the NBA playoffs as a whole. What stood out to you? Teams that disappointed you the most, teams that have surprised you the most, players, anything. What you got?
Well, I think it's been a nice, healthy mix of 40-point blowouts and close games in which one team blows a 20-point lead. So I think it's been fairly entertaining. I think there's been a lot of surprises so far. For me, the teams. I'll start with disappointments first. The Milwaukee Bucks, man. I mean, I understand. You know, there's a lot of conversations as to whether or not Drew Holiday was a better fit than Damian Lillard, but
for the record, yes, better fit.
Yes, much better fit. But, you know, you still got to get, I mean, you know, that team still should have been able to do some damage. And I understand that injuries played a really major part, but, you know, they were, in my opinion, you know, other than the Celtics, I thought they were the ones most likely to make it out of the East. So I was definitely disappointed in them. I was definitely disappointed in the Lakers. And I know that they were a lower seed, but you can't lead for 80% of the series and get, you know, and lose 4-1. It just doesn't make any sense. So they had no ability to hold on to games. Jamal Murray, I think, is when he plays the Lakers, I think he's the greatest player in NBA history. I don't think there's a single person better than Jamal Murray playing against the Lakers. So, but the Nuggets, I mean, that's another team that, you know, you really look at their roster. Yeah, they lost Bruce Brown, but really they were geared up to make another run. I thought, I really thought, especially watching, you know, how they played against the Lakers and then how they won, you know, all those games in a row against the Timberwolves after dropping 2 at home. I was like, oh man, they can kick it to another gear, but you know, they're a surprise second round exit. So overall, I'm really happy with the 4 remaining teams. So no matter what, somebody's going to get their first ring this year, which I think is super exciting.
Yeah, I think that's the cool part about it.
Yeah, and unless it's LeBron, I'm not really a big fan of back-to-back titles or anything like that. So I like the parity that we're seeing. I think it's going to be some really good conference finals.
Yeah. I think the only outlier is the Indiana Pacers being the conference finals. Not that they're a bad team. I think they're a great team. They have a lot of great pieces. That Pascal Siakam trade was huge for them, and they're clearly clicking in the playoffs, and Rick Carlisle's a really good coach. But the Knicks should have had that series, and that's disappointing. To me, the entire playoffs can be summed up with one word: injuries. I think the amount of series that completely tilted or shifted because of injuries, not just normal injuries, but like star players, you know, Kawhi basically non-existent, Giannis having to sit, Joel Embiid banged up. He still played, but banged up. The Knicks have had a guy go down just about every night. Luka was playing hurt for the first half of that Thunder series. I think that's what's disappointing to me about the playoffs as a whole, and I think that's a problem the NBA has, and I don't know if there's a solution to it, but every year we have series that are just gone a poor direction because of a massive injury, and that's not what you want to see. You want to see all the stars out there competing in the playoffs when it's game time. And the fact that we didn't get Giannis for basically that whole series, definitely a game changer there. the fact that Kawhi didn't get to really go out there and play. I don't really think the Clippers were going to go deep still. But you want to see everyone out there. And I think especially you can look at the Knicks. The Knicks back and forth with the Pacers. You're telling me if they didn't have a healthy Anunoby and Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson, Bogdanovich, all of those guys that have been out, that they wouldn't have won that series. And I personally was hoping for that because I think Celtics Knicks would have been a fantastic series. Jalen Brunson, Jayson Tatum. But to me, that's been the big the overarching theme of the playoffs has been injuries of star players tilting the series. I think the second biggest story does. I think we got to talk for a few minutes here, even though they just lost their second round series. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, they first time in the playoffs to this capacity with such a young roster, man, they looked really good. You can see where their weaknesses are, that they're still maybe another big time offensive weapon away from really taking the next level. But man, they were gritty. They had some impressive wins. That Dallas series was just so good, back and forth. Luka and Shea, and of course Kyrie didn't show up for most of it, but then hit some big shots late. But what'd you think of the Thunder's playoff appearance this go around?
Yeah, I mean, they had a really strong regular season, so I think that kind of set the tone of, okay, they obviously have the talent to win games. They obviously can sustain success. But a lot of people, and myself included, the big thing was the lack of experience. So, I think, you obviously have a guy like Shea that's going to average 30 points a game. You got a couple of scores on there. Chet Holmgren can put up some points. Jalen Williams can score. But to me, I think the big missing piece is they just got to get some guys with experience on there. Gordon Hayward was on there, but now he's coming out
Didn't even
saying
play.
he didn't play enough and stuff like that. So I think they need to get some veteran presence in the locker room because, and maybe they just needed 1 year of a playoff run, before they can really make a deep run. So, but overall, I was very impressed. I mean, you look at the average age of that team, and it was almost like a college team. It's crazy that they were able to, string together that strong of a regular season. So, I definitely think, I mean, going forward, you're going to see them in the similar positions, and they're going to definitely be in a position to make a deep run. I think they just ran into a Mavs team that is really, really dangerous. And I think the midseason moves that they made, made them a lot more of a complete team. So
Yeah,
I
PJ
wouldn't.
Washington was electric shooting the
PJ
three.
Washington, Daniel Gafford. I mean, these were good pickups. They didn't get talked a lot during the trade deadline, but man, they made that Mavericks team very, very dangerous. I mean, I mean, like you said, Luka was playing hurt half the series. Kyrie was struggling offensively, and they still, I mean, pretty decisively handled a really good Thunder team. So next year, you're definitely going to see the Thunder squad back in there, barring any major injuries. So they're going to be a fun team to watch going forward.
Yeah, they're one potential star away from really, really taking off. But I think they were a lot of fun to watch. I thought the Cavs series was also kind of interesting. Actually, Cavs Magic series, I thought that was kind of a fun one back and forth because the Magic, another up and coming team that has a lot of talent, just not the experience yet to do so. But I think overall, there's been some fun games. I do think it's disappointing that we've had a bunch of the major blowouts. Games not quite as close. But I think this second round series really showed a lot more entertaining games. Because again, the Pacers, man, they're putting up a ton of points, and they can do it even if Tyrese Haliburton's not scoring.
A lot of points too.
Yeah, they give up. No defense on that team outside of Miles Turner. But so now we're down to the finals. We got the Nuggets. Got bounced, back-to-back champion, or no longer able to go to a back-to-back. This is the 6th year in a row we haven't had a team reach the finals after winning it the previous year, because the Minnesota Timberwolves, who going into the playoffs was my, I guess, sleeper team to win it all, they just seemed like the right fit. Tim Connolly over there doing what he did with the Nuggets in Minnesota, putting together that team. And I think they look a lot of fun. They had a really intense series with the Nuggets after blowing out the Suns 4 straight games. A lot of back and forth. They go out to that 2-0 series lead early. It looks like the Nuggets are done. Nuggets come out of nowhere, come back, take the series lead, and then Minnesota closes it out. And then how about going down 20 going into the second half, late in that third quarter, and then they just go on a monstrous run to go up like double digits. So I think at one point they had like a 30-point differential in the third quarter, going the fourth quarter, and then they close it out. I guess the
Yeah.
question I have though for you, I've asked a few people this: Anthony Edwards, is he the second coming of Michael Jordan?
I think, man, I think he's that guy for sure. He just, it was kind of funny yesterday, game seven, he shot 6 of 24, but you still felt his presence in that game. You still saw him hit big shots. You still saw him not back away and shy away from, getting to his spots and getting the ball in the basket. So obviously I'm not ready to proclaim anyone. I think he looks a lot like Michael
He
Jordan.
does.
We can talk about taking a DNA test at some
Michael
point.
Jordan Jr.
But he's got the personality too. He's just like he's very much kind of. I can't really figure out a good way to explain this, but a lot of the past couple of years, a lot of the stars or the faces of the NBA, they've been I'd say a little bit more laid back personality. Like, LeBron's he can, he's funny and he's expressive and stuff like that. But you look at like KD, you look at Kawhi, you look at Steph, these are all like quiet, mild mannered guys. And then you have Anthony Edwards who picks up, this dude must have racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines already. This dude's cursing every single live after show game, after show interview and all that stuff. So he's got the stuff, he's got the juice, man. So him being the cornerstone on that team, I mean, I was very shocked that they were as good as they were this fast. But I mean, I think you're looking at a guy. He's going to be a multiple-time MVP guy, multiple rings. He's just got it. He's got what it takes, just on face value alone.
Yeah, and I love their post-game press conference last night. Just the back and forth with him and Karl Anthony Towns. They seem like they have a lot of fun. And reporters like, hey, is it strange that you guys are at this stage? Because usually you have to lose first to get there. He's like, what do you mean? Our franchise has been trashed for 20 years. We've lost everything. We just haven't made it this far enough to lose. But their team, they're not going anywhere. Man, they play some intense defense. Watching that Nuggets series, I think it was game 2 specifically that I'm thinking of. It's just like, how on earth does Jokic and Murray get a shot up? Because they're suffocating you everywhere. They're up 15 and they're pressing full court. Their first quarter, they're up big and they're pressing full court. And every single one of those guys just has a huge impact. Great one-on-one defenders, great team defenders. Jaden McDaniels has been amazing. I can't remember who was it that joked about was it Devin Booker that said we have Kevin Durant, and then Anthony Edwards like, well, we've got a Jaden McDaniels, and clearly that was the bigger. I mean, not that Kevin Durant didn't have a good series, but when Jaden McDaniels was guarding these top guys, they played terribly, and I think we saw in that series. They make it to the Western Conference Finals, and of course Dallas gets the 4-2 victory over the Thunder, despite Kyrie Irving not really being a big presence offensively. Luka still does his thing, but PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, some of those role players really, really balling out. So that'll be a fun series. And then on the other side, Eastern Conference Finals, basically the Celtics, in my opinion, have kind of cakewalked their way into the finals once again. Should be the year that they win it all because they are the favorite and they've had the easiest path, and I think they have the weakest of the 4 teams remaining in their way. But the Celtics, for whatever reason, are also a team that get really streaky, and they'll go 18 of 45 from 3, and then they'll go 9 of 36, and they don't look like they have any clue what they're doing offensively. And Jayson Tatum shows up for big moments, and then the next big moment he's non-existent. And of course, Jaylen Brown can't go to his left. But Derek White, how about that? Derek White has been insane.
Yeah.
Unstoppable 3-point shooter. But they get to take on the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. I guess the question I have as we start looking at these matchups, which team and which player do you think has the most pressure left in the playoffs? And is it Jayson Tatum?
Yeah, it's Jayson Tatum. It's really that entire Celtics squad. It's Jaylen Brown too. I mean, this guy's a $300 million a year player, and people still make jokes that he can't dribble with his left hand. So I think the rest of the team. First of all, Indiana, they're happy to be there.
Yeah, they're playing with house money.
I think they're playing with house money. Now, Indiana's a really good team. They got a squad. Haliburton's a baller. Pascal Siakam was a great pickup. But they, nobody expected them to get at this point. They don't expect them to win the title. Dallas, Kyrie's already won a ring. He's already been a major contributor in a championship-winning team. Luka's still young. He's been on rebuilding rosters, or I shouldn't say rebuilding, but he's been on, mid-level contender teams, and he's been to a Western Conference Finals already. So I think age plays a factor, and same thing with Anthony Edwards. These are all young guys. Nobody expects them to win a championship this early on in the season. Jayson Tatum and the Boston Celtics. I think I saw this the other day, and I couldn't believe it. I think they've made like the last 6 conference finals, or last 4 of 6, or something like that.
It sounds something like that.
They repeatedly make deep playoff runs, and they can't get it done. And Tatum is very odd. He's either the best player on the court, or you can't even tell that he's on the court on any given night. It's very odd. He's a very hot and cold superstar. So he and Brown definitely have, I think, the most pressure. And that organization, which, let's be real, I mean, they're talked about like a blue blood, organization. But outside of 2008, I mean, most of these titles were coming from when there was 10 teams in the NBA. So I think the Celtics organization in general needs to kind of reclaim some of that pride and honor that they try to cling to. Because you look at the Lakers won 3 with Shaq and Kobe, another 2 with Kobe, and 1 more with LeBron. I mean, they're winning. At least they've won in the last 20 years. So I think it's definitely the Celtics.
With that small asterisk next to them, I still put that asterisk there.
Asterisk, the hardest championship ever to win.
But yeah, I think it's clear the Celtics have the most pressure on their plate. I mean, this has been 4 or 5 years in a row of conference finals appearances. They get to the finals, don't win, or they get to the NBA finals, don't win it. And now I'm going completely blank on who they played in that series.
Warriors.
Was it Warriors? Yeah, it was the Warriors.
It took me a while too. Yeah,
and Tatum struggled in that series, but they clearly are. I think they're the best offensive team in the league, just because of how deadly lethal they are from the 3-point line. But yeah, they've got some hot streaks and they've got cold streaks, and when they're cold, they're really bad. But I think they've got the most veteran presence and experience. I mean, Drew Holiday, again, we said this at the beginning. I think Drew Holiday is one of the most underrated point guards in the league. You can clearly see why the Celtics wanted him, and why I'm shocked the Bucks gave him up for an offensive threat, because Drew Holiday is kind of like the glue that holds it together. Derek White, he isn't the most playoff experience, but he's been in the league long enough and he knows how to score. Al Horford, Mr. Reliable, he's been there forever. I think the big question mark with him is how much do they get of Kristaps Porzingis in this series? He's projected to play, but might miss the first game, the second game still, could come back. Obviously, they're at their best with him. But even without him, they've got a good group of role players. And if Jayson Tatum's on, even if Jaylen Brown's struggling, they look really good. But it's clearly them with the most pressure. You would got to think that if they don't pull it off somehow this time, that the Tatum Brown duo has got to be done. They got to move on, break the 2 up, move Brown elsewhere, and try and find the next Robin to Tatum's Batman. Or Tatum's just got to really finally answer the call and actually do what he says when he says he's going to go vintage Kobe, and actually show up. After him, though, I think Luka's got the next most pressure. Not because he has to win a championship to really be taken seriously, but in his time, he hasn't had very successful playoff runs yet. And now he's finally got a co-tandem with Kyrie Irving, who's been there, done that, has the experience, looks like a totally different version of himself in Dallas. None of the off-the-court antics have shown up anywhere. He's just focused on playing ball. Jason Kidd's a great coach. I think he's got a little bit of pressure there because he's been there a couple years and needs to finally do it in the playoffs. So I would go Luka second behind Tatum. And of course, the Timberwolves and the Pacers mostly, I mean, they have no expectation of being there from a national perspective. So they can just go out there and have fun. I actually think that's going to be a pretty good series because I think the Pacers match up pretty well at each position, and they've got some good depth. But as poorly as they play defense, I mean, they might give up 33s. But I think that'll be a fun series. And, of course, Minnesota. To me, Minnesota, I think, still the toughest team left because they don't need to score 110 to beat you. They can kind of do the vintage Miami Heat, hold you to under 90 points and grind out a victory, hit a big shot late. They're fantastic. I think Naz Reid's one of the most underrated off the bench guys. He's the reason they won that series, I think, last night when Cat went out. He came in, hit some big shots, plays so physical. And I think by then Jokic was getting tired, but he looked really good. And then just, Anthony Edwards to me, if he's not the second coming of Michael Jordan, he's might be the closest thing in the league right now. Even if, like you said, if he has a bad game, he still shows up. That entire second half of the third quarter and fourth quarter, he locked down Murray one-on-one. Wasn't hitting shots, but he found ways to get his teammates involved. And I think he's been the most fun to me to watch. I mean, he can go off for 40 points any given second, go for 20 and a quarter. And then Karl-Anthony Towns, just the fact that he's a 7-footer that shoots threes and actually is a good defender for his size too. And of course, Rudy Gobert. But I think it's a lot of fun. Which of these two matchups are you most looking forward to?
Oh, definitely. I mean, definitely the Mavs. The Mavs Wolves. I think that series is going to be really good because first of all, we're probably going to see Ant go. I'm assuming he's either going to match up with Luka or Kyrie, so I think that's going to be a good.
I think in his press conference he said he's looking forward to stopping Kyrie.
Right? So I think that's
because I think they'll go McDaniels on Luka.
Yeah,
early.
I think so. So I think that'll be a good, a pretty good matchup here. So I'm curious how. Dallas likes to get out in transition. They like to score a lot of points, and you're going to see them going up against what's the nickname? Not non-order, I think, is Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jaden McDaniels' nickname. So I'm definitely excited for that one. I think that's going to be a 6 to 7 game series. Again, it's really going to boil down to two things, in my opinion. Number one, it's going to boil down to Cat. Because I think when Cat plays well offensively, this team is an entirely different team. Now, he did his job defensively. He guarded Nikola Jokic one-on-one better than I think we've seen.
Better than reigning defensive player of the year.
Yeah, exactly, than Gobert. Gobert, I think his bread and butter's in help defense and rotational defense. I don't think he's a lockdown one-on-one defender by any means. But it'll come down to me, it's Cat on the Wolves, and then I think it's Kyrie on the Mavs. I think it's what version of Kyrie they're going to get when he is clicking. I mean, you saw him go off against the Clippers for 40 points when Luka was struggling. I mean, that's to me, those are the two X factors. Now, I think the Celtics, Pacers matchup, that's going to be better than I think people are giving it credit for.
I think it's going to be one that surprises us. It might still be, Celtics win in 5, but the games are tight.
Right.
Because the Pacers are giving it their all.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's more of a 5 to 6 game series. But ultimately, I'm looking forward to Wolves, Mavs, and I think I'm right now leaning towards Wolves in 6. That's my overall thought so far. Now it depends. I'll change my mind if they play them really tight those first 2 games. I'll probably stretch it to 7.
Yeah, I have a tough time with this series because I love Luka and Kyrie. I want to see Luka win, but there's something about watching the Timberwolves as a team. The coach on the crutches can't actually coach from the front. So Micah Nori's coaching, and he's been fantastic, and he should be getting a head coaching gig because he's clearly the best coach in the playoffs right now with the way he's schemed up defensively. And I know outside the game, Chris Finch is still doing a lot, but during the game, he just can't do what he has been doing. So there's just something about watching those guys play that's entertaining. I think, again, Anthony Edwards is electrifying. I think it's cool to see the American being electrifying. Not that there's guys on other teams that can't do it like Jayson Tatum, but Jokic last year, Giannis a couple years ago, Luka's been the guy too. It'd be kind of cool to see that story. But I think that series is gonna be so much fun to watch. Luka is gonna get his. I'm really curious to see. Yeah, what does the Timberwolves do? Do they slow down Luka? Do they slow down Kyrie? I think, to me personally, you try to slow down Luka. If Kyrie goes off, he goes off. Because when Luka's off, he gets irritated, he gets frustrated, he starts blaming the refs, and you can fight back in. That's going to be a fun one. So, let's get into official predictions. So, if we're looking at just from a betting perspective here, the Timberwolves are still the favorite in the series, minus 168, Dallas plus 142. But that's really, really close. So, that tells you it's probably going to be a 6-7 game series there. Eastern Conference side, the public is giving no shot to the Pacers. Most people have this wrapped up in 5. Celtics minus 1,100 is the favorite. Pacers plus 700. And if we look at the finals as a whole, the Celtics are still your favorite at minus 150. Minnesota second at plus 270. Dallas plus 500. Of course, Indiana plus 2,800. But as we look at these two series, what is your official prediction as to who ends up in the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I'm thinking right now it's going to be Celtics and Wolves. That's the most likely scenario I see. Again, I'm taking Celtics probably in 5. I do think Indiana can steal one at home. And yeah, I'm having the Wolves go 6-7 against the Mavs. Now, I think that finals matchup is going to be really, really interesting. I don't trust the Celtics. I don't. To me, they're like the Clippers. You can load that team up with 5 Hall of Famers. I don't think they can
Yeah,
get it
they
done.
might have the best 1 through 5 in the league
I
when all
think they
healthy.
do. I think they do, but it's just, man, I just don't think so. I think there's too much. To me, here's what it boils down to with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. A lot of their offense is really hard to sustain. It's tough shots off the dribble. It's isolations. It's step back threes. That stuff. And Charles Barkley always harps on this. And probably, I'm sure Shaq has joined in on this too, inside the NBA. But those kind of things, shots at some point are going to stop falling. If your entire offense relies on that, it's not sustainable. And that's where you see these teams get in trouble in a 7-game series. It's a long schedule. The legs get tired. That's where you get those 6 for 25 shooting nights and stuff like that. So I just don't trust them. I trust a defense like Minnesota to not only be sustainable, but I think it's perfect to guard against the offensive style of Boston. So as of right now, I would go. Celtics Wolves finals, and I honestly, I'm going Wolves in 6 at that time. I'm not even going to have that go to 7. I've not seen anything from Boston until
Yeah, you can't trust them. They haven't
No.
proven it at all over the last 5-6 years.
No.
I mean, if this was 2K, I'd take the Celtics. I was playing 2K
100%.
yesterday, and oh my gosh, Jayson Tatum is a cheat code. I've never played with Tatum, and I couldn't tell you how long. 6 for 6 from 3, fantastic. Derek White, 6 of 6 from 3. Those two guys just. But this isn't 2K. This is real life, and I think the way Dallas has played defensively and the way Minnesota's played, that I think you trust those two teams more. And I think late game, I trust Luka and Kyrie more than I would trust Tatum and Brown, and I think I trust the combination of what the Timberwolves can do. Jaden McDaniels can hit a big shot. Mike Conley is a super veteran, very underrated, and of course they got two 7-footers. And how about Gobert's clutch, man? He hit the turnaround fadeaway to ice the series last night. So yeah, I think I'm there with you. I'm leaning Minnesota right now against Dallas. Just again, I think defensively they just do so much to frustrate you, and I would trust them more over the Celtics. I will say this one, not really a prediction, but a hot take, I guess. I would not be surprised, because the Celtics have had some rest, that the Pacers go out and win Game 1. That's I think the only Pacers bet of the series I might do is Pacers to take Game 1, because they're probably not going to come in I haven't checked. Let me just pull it up right now. I haven't seen what they are plus 360 right now for Game 1. So I kind of like that. They're a 10-point spread. Either take the money line or them to cover. I think the Pacers are on a nice little groove right now. For the most part, they're pretty healthy. The Celtics have had a few days off. Sometimes a few days off, your shooters go rusty. So I like that. But I think it's going to be a fun series. I guess last question for you. Of the 4 teams remaining, who do you feel like up to this point has earned playoff MVP?
Oh, man. I'd give it to Jalen Brunson, but he's out now.
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm so disappointed they didn't make this series. They should have.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm giving it to Mr. Anthony Edwards, man. I think a combination, his explosiveness on offense, and but I think on the defensive side of the ball, that's why I think I'm so high on him. I think a lot of people are so high on him. This dude locks in. This dude plays both sides of the ball incredibly, incredibly well. So I think you look at his one-on-one defense against Jamal Murray. I mean, there was times where he had to guard, Booker and Kevin Durant. I mean, he went up against 2 all-time offensive talents in Series 1. So I think you got to give the MVP to Ant so far in the playoffs here.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah, Ant-Man or Luka, I think, are the 2 most likely. Yeah. I get it. Just the amount of we've talked on this episode about the West, it just feels like the finals champ is one of those 2 teams, the way they're playing. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. A little bit of NBA talk. We'll probably do some more after the final series, do some NBA finals preview, talk a little bit about the upcoming NBA draft. You do have 2 KU players in the conference finals. Both of them don't play, but Markieff Morris down there in Dallas, and then Svi up in Boston. So it would be cool to see one of them make it to the finals and get a ring there. But unfortunately, Christian Brown loses and is not in the conference finals. Obviously, Joel Embiid out early. So nothing really from a KU perspective to really dive into too much. But yeah, we'll talk some NBA draft coming up here in the next couple of weeks as we get closer to that and talk about the NBA finals. But yeah, that'll wrap it up here. Thanks again for checking us out. If you don't like the NBA content, don't worry. We got all sorts of other stuff for you. There's a great episode that we did with Devin Neal, KU football running back. You can go check that out on our YouTube page. So make sure you're liking and subscribing to the channel so you're up to date with all the future content. Still tons of KU basketball stuff coming. Chiefs Royals talk. Royals are definitely in the hunt for a playoff spot. One of the best teams in baseball. You'll see some talk about that here soon. And then, of course, you can follow us on Spotify. Hit the like button there. Give us a 5-star review. Listen on the go. And then, of course, all of our social medias. You can find us at KCSA Pod. Plenty of content to go around. But that'll wrap it up for this one. Appreciate you guys checking us out, and we'll catch you in the next episode.